A confident Gold Coast side travelled to Kazali Stadium in Cairns to face this season's surprise packet, the Western Bulldogs. Gary Ablett picked up where he left off last week, with a brilliant start to the game.
Miller got it to him, and Ablett, what a start. What about that?
But unfortunately, Charlie Dixon's game ended prematurely, with the key forward suffering a game-ending ankle injury for the second time in 3 weeks.
Charlie Dixon just iced up the outside of that right ankle, subbed out of the game as we just heard from Rodney Eads.
With Dixon out of the game, Tom Lynch became the focal point in attack. Inaccuracy in front of goal hurt his day, but his hands were on, hauling in 9 marks, including 6 contested grabs.
They are precious goals at that end.
After holding the Bulldogs to just 3 goals to half-time, Gold Coast began to put the foot down in the third quarter, booting 3 goals to 1, despite Luke Beveridge's side dominating the quarter. But that's where the night ended for Rodney Eads' side, with the Dogs piling on 10 goals to 2 in the last quarter to run over the top of the Suns. Ablett continued his remarkable comeback with another 30-possession haul that included 11 in the last quarter when his side needed him most. Kolajasny also collected 30 touches of his own to continue his stellar season across half-back. A slow start against Greater Western Sydney at Metricon Stadium made the going tough early for the Suns in round 16, despite the best efforts of Tom Lynch and Brandon Matera early. With David Swallow returning to the injury list, Tuke Miller thrived on added responsibility in the engine room to earn a Rising Star nomination for his performance against the Giants. Some magic from captain Gary Ablett continued to trim the margin in the second quarter.
The perfect steal, and that's the perfect dribble goal. Gary Ablett is back, and he's at his best.
A classy finish from Alex Sexton on the run kept Gold Coast in the game after the main break, as goals became hard to come by.
Hits the head hard.
Some pure class from the Little Master in the opening seconds of the last quarter reduced the margin to under a goal to send the home crowd into hysteria. And then some poise and penetration put the Suns in front.
It's a big one. It is as big as it gets because the Suns have hit the front.
Devon Smith started to put Gold Coast to the sword in the last quarter, but not before Miller did his best to keep the Suns in the game, although it was to no avail, as the Giants pulled away to win by 15 points. Ablett continued to stun the football world in his return from injury with another 30-possession haul and 3 goals. And Miller produced the finest showing of his career to date with 27 possessions and 9 clearances. In front of the second largest crowd Gold Coast has ever played in front of, the Suns started brightly against the Crows at the Adelaide Oval, with Charlie Dixon and Tom Lynch leading the way up forward. But in a cruel moment in the dying stages of the opening quarter, Gary Ablett's wretched run with injury continued, with the skipper injuring his knee, which would bring his season to a premature end. Adelaide started to get on top in the second term, but Gold Coast kept within touching distance, although they were forced to work hard kicking into the breeze. Some polish from Harley Bennell helped reduce the margin just before the main break.
Now he's got it. Just goes to ground, waits for support, gets hard running from Russell, who can play on and kick a goal. This is a really entertaining game of footy.
Lynch continued to be the most dominant forward on the ground after half-time, booting his 4th. And then a moment of individual brilliance by Jesse Lonergan reduced the margin to under 2 goals late in the third quarter.
Yeah, they've stayed inside the 450 and they've got a chance now. Lonergan might go all the way by himself though. Runs inside that 50 and bangs it through.
But that was as close as the Suns would get, as a depleted midfield struggled to go with the Crows in the last quarter, despite the best efforts of Harley Bennell, who amassed a stunning 39 disposals, and Lonergan, who stepped up in Ablett's absence. Tom Lynch was handsomely rewarded for one of the best individual performances of Gold Coast's season, as was Stephen May, who shut out Adelaide captain Taylor Walker, holding him to 2 goals despite a massive inside 50 discrepancy. Round 18 began in scrappy circumstances at Metricon Stadium before Cade Kolajasny posted the first goal of the game to set the tone for the night ahead. In his first game since round 9, excitement machine Jack Martin started brightly, with his clean hands a standout.
It falls into his hands, handball to Ben, who should kick a goal, and the Gold Coast Suns are back in front.
Tom Lynch picked up where he left off last week at Adelaide Oval, kicking his second before the main break.
One step, kick, goal, Lynch.
At the other end of the ground, Stephen May was continuing his great form, nullifying Coleman medal leader Josh Kennedy, as well as turning defence into attack. Martin got the ball rolling again almost immediately after half-time, before the game became a real war of attrition. A big pluck and even bigger goal from a red-hot Lynch just before three-quarter time set the scene for an unlikely victory over the second-placed Eagles.
It's there. 3 for Lynch, Suns by 8.
Some poise and polish from Harley Bennell and Brandon Matera kept the Suns within touching distance. And then Hall kept the momentum rolling. With less than a minute left on the clock, the scene was set for a hero. And reminiscent of Leo Barry, Lynch flew in from the side to haul in a grab that never looked in doubt.
Come on! Tom Lynch, Barry Hall called for him, and Barry gets him within the last minute. What a grab from the captain!
And then, more importantly, he went back and kicked truly to tie the game against one of the premiership favourites.
The unlikely draw against the West Coast Eagles. It's there. Scores a level, 4 seconds remaining.
May's demolition of Kennedy was rewarded in the votes, with the key defender holding the star to just 6 possessions and 0 impact. Bennell continued his remarkable return with a brilliant performance, as did Kolajasny, who's been a picture of consistency this season. Gold Coast headed up the highway for Q-Clash 10, looking to build on some impressive form in recent weeks. Tom Lynch was looking ominous in the first quarter, kicking 2 goals and taking 4 marks. It was far from pretty early, with both sides turning the ball over and making unforced errors. This coast-to-coast goal was indicative of the gulf between the two sides.
He's going to have a big day out here.
Matera to Hall. Luke Russell, look at the speed of Hall, and they've opened it up nicely here. They want to go coast to coast. Shaw should finish it off. It should be coast to coast, and it is. Beautiful goal, Gold Coast.
The Suns did their best to keep the Lions in the game in the opening half, but some class from Jack Martin put the Suns back in front. But the first half was far from pretty, with Gold Coast heading into the main break, leading by the narrowest of margins. A 7-goal third quarter would end up setting up a hard-fought one for the Suns, with talls and smalls getting in on the act.
And Matera kicks the goal!
And even defenders pushing forward.
He launches long. 4 in a row, Gold Coast, and they're pumped now.
Aaron Hall continued his resurgence as a midfielder, with another impressive display, collecting a career-high 28 possessions. Brisbane came hard in the final quarter to breathe life into the contest and threaten an upset, but Lynch, in a Marcus Ashcroft medal-winning performance, ensured Gold Coast held on for the win. A 5-goal haul from Lynch saw him earn the most votes in the local derby, whilst Hall was rewarded in one of the best performances of his career. A fired-up Stephen May also continued his hot streak in the win. Gold Coast headed south to the Mecca of football in search of premiership points for the 3rd successive week. Tom Lynch broke the stalemate deep in the first quarter before a moment of individual brilliance from Aaron Hall.
He's relishing his time in the middle. His 9th disposal could be a goal. It's high, it's long, it's delightful.
Lynch continued to keep his side in the game after the Tigers began to gain the ascendancy in the second, with the spearhead taking everything that came in his direction. The longer the game unravelled, the more Damien Hardwick's side took control. And if it wasn't for Stephen May down back and his dominance of Jack Riewoldt, the margin would have been far uglier than it ended up being. Injuries marred the encounter too, with Jack Martin being carried from the ground on a stretcher after a sickening collision with Trent Cotchin, and Tom Nichols and Charlie Dixon unable to finish the game. May's outstanding effort on Riewoldt was rewarded with the most votes on an otherwise dark afternoon for Gold Coast. Aaron Hall's strong form was also acknowledged with votes for the 4th consecutive week, his midfield transition paying dividends.
Tell me that I'm wrong. I've walked that road before and left you on your own. And please believe them when they say that it's left for yesterday in the records that I play.